All right, guys, welcome back to How's New Garage. So today we're back on the rat rod project. If you remember from the last video on the rat rod, we got the rear end in place and the fuel cell back in the rat rod, just kind of sitting there. So today what we're going to do is mount the fuel cell and start building the bridge and stuff to mount the airbags and airbag brackets and all that. And we got Milo helping today. He's done absolutely nothing, which is fine. So, you know, can't do it all myself. So what we're going to start on is the fuel cell mount. So we've already roughly put the fuel cell in here, and I've kind of shorted up a little bit and got it where I want to sit. So what I'm going to do now is bend a piece of DOM that comes up over, catches the bottom of the fuel cell, and then goes around, and then we're going to make some tabs to bolt the fuel cell down so it doesn't move. There is another bracket down below the fuel cell that the fuel cell used to sit on. I'm going to unbolt that bracket, make a new bracket, and raise it up a little bit, because we did raise the fuel cell an inch to give us more clearance down there. Because if you remember, down here we have to put air compressors, battery, an air tank, probably a valve block. You know, there is some stuff that goes behind the rear end and underneath the fuel cell. Plus, you got to get some shocks in there and all that other stuff. So we're going to bend up some DOM to go over, catch the fuel cell, and hopefully I'm going to double it, make it a shock mount also. So we're going to make it out of some 1.5" quarter wall DOM for two reasons. One, I needed to be a little bit strong, and for two, I lost a piece of my bender for my 1.25" die, so I can't bend 1.25" right now. So 1.5" it is. But we are going to be using the pipe bender today for a little bit. I bought this pipe bender. It's a JD Squared Model 32. I've got 3 dies for it: 1 inch, 1.25", and 1.5". It's hydraulic assist. I bought this thing like 10 years ago. I paid a ton of money for it. At the time I was still working out of my little tiny garage, so really I didn't even have room for it. But a guy I used to know was closing his shop and filing bankruptcy and stuff, and he was selling a bunch of tools. So I bought it from him and a couple other things, and I think I paid like dog's chewing on something. I think I paid like $1,500 for the bender, the 3 dies, and then the hydraulic setup and the stand and everything. But honestly, at the time when I bought it, I was like, man, I've got to have this piece of equipment. I'm gonna use the crap out of it. And I bet you I've used this thing 4 times in the last 10 years. So I've never even really acquainted myself with this piece of machinery. So I guess I'm gonna do some trial and error, but I'm trying to do too much error with 1.5" quarter wall DOM is quite expensive. But luckily we only got to do 2 bends, so it shouldn't be too bad to figure out, and we shouldn't waste too much material. So I'm gonna get set up and start figuring out where we got to bend and what degrees and all that other stuff. What I've got figured out here is, hopefully you can see it. So we need to come up 2 inches from the top of the notch. The top of the notch to the bottom of the fuel cell is going to be 2 inches. So what I'm going to do is just take the piece of DOM and bend a 45 on both ends, and then cut it so that way it goes above the notch 2 inches to catch the bottom of the fuel cell, but goes a 1/2 inch below the top of the notch. That way it leaves us a nice spot to weld the actual piece on. So we're going to bend at 245s. Roughly what I figured out is the inside dimension of this leg is going to be 4.5 inches. And then the total piece is going to be somewhere around 41 inches total length of the piece. So I've got it set in the bender. So one thing you do got to note is if you're bending like 2 bends on a piece and they have to be on the same plane, you have to make sure that you level your piece. So what I did is just kind of put my pipe clamp on here, and I got this angle finder on here, and what I'll do is zero out my piece on this angle finder. So oops, it's a little bit much. My angle finder's kind of wonky, so sometimes it likes close enough. That'll work. So now when I take the tube out or the pipe out and turn it around to bend the other 45, I'll just put that back on 0, and then the 2 45s will be square with each other. Also, since I don't remember any of the dimensions for when the bends start or any of that, I've marked the inside of this piece where the die starts. So I'm gonna bend this to a 45, and then I'll measure this and see where our bend is on our tube and everything. So that way when I pull it through and go to bend the other side, I'll be able to mark it where the bend exactly needs to be. So that way I'm not wasting a bunch of material. Also, you'll notice that this bender's got this little dial here, and there's a little piece of TIG rod here. So when you just bend it, it just bends it around to whatever degree you want. You kind of want to go a couple degrees over just because the material is going to spring back. And, you know, if you bend it to 45, it'll probably spring to like a 41 or 42 or something like that. So I was just go to like 47, I think. So anyway, this machine's quite loud. So I'm going to set the camera up, do the bend, and then we'll report back after I have screwed it all up. All right, so our bend didn't come out very good. It came out okay, it's usable, but it's not exactly what I wanted. It's a 1/2 inch short, so not a big deal. It's a 1/2 inch short. Not a big deal. What I could do is just lower the mount down on the notch a little bit more, and it'll give us the same height, and then that'll make our width, give us an extra 1/2 inch of width. Not a big deal, but you know, it's a learning experience. I just need to move my measurement out, you know, a 1/2 inch. So I gotta do some more bends on the upper bag mount, so you know, we'll get some more experience there. But what I'm going to do now is I've marked this straight cut here. I'm going to cut it with my cutoff wheel as straight as I humanly can. And then we're just going to kind of mock it up in there and see what it looks like, and go from there. All right, so I got the piece cut and cleaned up. Right there. Yeah, about there. So that's where it's going to be. The fuel cell looks pretty good sitting on top of it. We're gonna do the tabs, like we said, to mount it. And then there's just enough room in the back here. So if we get some shock tabs on here and then some tabs on the back of the axle, we should be able to put some nice shocks in here. Plenty of room for that. And then we're gonna do bag mounts on the axle, obviously. And then we're gonna build a little bridge, come up over for the bag mounts. And then I think what we'll do is we'll do another 1.5 inch DOM bar, similar bend, probably a different height though, based on the thickness of our bags and our brackets and all that. And then if we get the bracket in here, the upper bag bracket, you know, wherever it may be, we'll tie back into this bar also to kind of give the bridge a little bit more strength to hold up, you know, the truck. This thing only weighs like, I don't know, 2,300 pounds altogether, the whole car. So this thing really weighs nothing. We're gonna put freaking 9,000 pounds worth of airbags in it, because I think the rear bags are 2,500 pound bags, and then, or 2,600 pound bags, so that's 5,200 pounds there. And then the front bags are 2,500 pound bags, so you get another 5,000 pounds worth of bags in the front. So we have 10,000 pounds worth of airbags in this thing. It weighs 2,400 pounds with a full tank of fuel in it. So, you know, I'm not really, I mean, I'm worried, but I'm not super concerned about all of this structure back here being strong enough. I think we're gonna have plenty of strength back here. Quarter wall DOM, you know, there's gonna be plenty back here. So I'm gonna get this tacked in here, and then I'm gonna take some more measurements and figure out what we got to do for the bags. And then yeah, I'll probably make these tabs for the fuel cell too while I'm here, and see if we can just at least get it bolted in and get it to not move. I've got my lower bag plate located, squared up, leveled, and tacked on. And after we put the bag in, got it slid in. Sorry, floor's a little wonky. The top of the bag is going to be level with the notch. So what we need to do, here's my upper bag plate. My thought was, we've got two different ways we can do this. We could do this with the fitting out this way towards the back of the car, which this bracket is designed to have this bar go through it like so. But if we do it roughly like this, I feel like this bridge bar is going to be too close to our fuel cell mount. So what we can do is turn the upper bracket this way, which will put our fitting on the inside, and then we can run our bridge bar here, which will give us more of a gap. It'll run our fitting inside this bar, so we can, when it comes time to plumb our air ride, which I'm not 100% sure on how we're doing that, but I am pretty sure that the valve block is going to go back underneath the fuel cell, so that'll allow us to come out of this fitting and then come around, because we are going to have a shock in here, but allow us to come around and go back that way with the air line, so that way we're not, you know, running down a notch and going back or anything like that. We can just come out really nice and clean, go back underneath the fuel cell to the valve. Also, what that'll allow us to do is we could come in and tie into this bar with a couple pieces going back this way, tying into this, and making it a little stronger. So this bar will be bent pretty much the same as this other bar, except for I want to kind of try and keep this bar closer to the top of the notch, because over here we are going to have part of the four-link suspension. The Heim joint is going to be here, or the R joint is going to be here. So we need to kind of leave as much room over here as we can. If we run this bridge bar down in here, you know, we're really going to limit the space that we're going to have down here. I'm going to go over, this is obviously just a mock-up piece, but I'm going to go over to the bender and bend up this bridge bar, and then we'll get it set in place and see how we like it. I mean, I've got this little tray kind of half welded and tacked together because I might have to move some stuff, so I just kind of tack some parts in place. But I'm going to show you this. Some of this might change, but for now I've got it tacked together. We're going to continue on and see where we end up with the mounting wall. This is underneath the fuel cell. I've got some nutserts put in here, and the compressors are going to bolt in line with each other, and then this plate back here is where the fuel pump is going to go, and then the battery is going to go on the other side. So this is just sitting in here for now. Once I get everything all done up and shocks in and all that, and get all this stuff put in place, we'll see how much room is in here and just make sure that everything is going to fit down in there, so if I have to move something, it'll be pretty easy to move before it's all, you know, boogered in there. So for now, I'm done with that part, and now what I need to move on to is mounting the air tank. What I'm going to do is come off the front of the bridge and mount the air tank right here. So you'll still be able to see all the custom pinstriping and everything on the fuel cell. The seats will be right in here, and then the air tank is basically going to kind of be floating in this area right here. How I'm going to do that is I've got some tube clamps. So these will clamp onto the bridge. These are 1.5" ID tube clamps for, you know, what, roll bar clamps or whatever you want to call them. And then what I'm going to do is take a piece of this BOM, and I'm going to weld it onto the tube clamp, and then take this and weld it onto the air tank. And then that way you can clamp the air tank onto the bridge, and then it'll be kind of, you know, it'll still have two things holding it on, but it'll kind of look like it's kind of floating in the back there. And then all the ports will come out of the bottom of the tank, so you'll be able to plumb into the tank. You won't be able to see any of the stuff going in and out of the tank as much, and it'll just look a lot better. Plus, I've went to manifold setup for the valves. We decided not to do 8 solenoid valves because, that, you know, if anybody's done air ride before, you know that solenoid valves can get really bulky really quick. So we went to just a regular manifold valve. Saved a ton of room there. As far as mounting the air tank, what I'm going to do is cut these mounts off, clean the air tank up, weld these little, you know, scutcheon plates or whatever you'd call them on there, little reinforcement plates, because you don't really want to weld this tube right to the air tank because it's going to eventually crack the air tank, because you want it a little bit thicker material to weld to. So I've made these and rolled them up, same diameter as the air tank. And I'm going to tack this all together and get it set in the vehicle, and then go on to start making the actual 4-link and everything. tank all mounted up, I think it's gonna look pretty cool. We'll be able to come off the bottom, come over to the frame with our air line back to our valve, come off the other side and go back to our air compressors. We've got a fitting on the side. We can come up and do like an old school, like liquid filled pressure gauge, you know, kind of go around the whole rat rod theme, you know. So I think it's gonna work. I think it's gonna work pretty good, and it don't look half bad. It's kind of follows the whole tube mount system, you know, the whole D1 bridge and all that. Still got enough, you can see the pinstripe and everything on the fuel tank and all that. I think it's gonna work pretty good. So I'm gonna move on now and start doing the 4-link and all that. I'm gonna get some stuff cleaned out of there and start taking some measurements. All right, so now that we've got everything inside the car, blah blah blah, we're gonna start laying out the suspension for the rear. This is back seat support, so the seat comes in here and leans back, and this is what the seat leans on. So I put this bar in here temporary. It's not tightened down or anything, but just to tell me where the rear seat's gonna go, and so that way I know where I can run the suspension without hitting the seat. So the seat has to go here because it doesn't move or anything like that, so it has to go here so the guy that owns it can fit in the car. So anyway, that being said, I've put this cross piece in here to give me a little bit of foundation to mount some of my rear suspension stuff to. And what I've come up with is this. So I've cut a piece of 2x3. Basically what I'm going to do is run this the same angle as the seat, and I'm going to run another piece here, and then let me grab this actually. I've made whittled some link tabs out of some 1/4-inch plate. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put this here, and then the upper link bar is going to triangulate, come down, put it down here with one hand, come down here, like so. So this is going to be the upper link bar. Is gonna be like this. What I'm gonna do is, since we'll have 2 of these, one over here for this other link bar, obviously, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cap the top of these tubes, cut out a piece of plate, cap the top, and then I'm gonna run a little hoop over top of them, connect them together, so that way we'll have like a little drive shaft hoop. And then the lower link bar is going to come straight over this way, and I'm going to make another mount for it over here, and then I'm actually going to attach the shock over here as well. So the shock will be over here, and then because there's just not enough room for the shock in the back, so we'll have to just make do with it being over here. So there's a ton of science and engineering that goes into developing suspension systems. So you got your instant center and all that blah blah blah, and there's a ton of literature out there on how to develop the correct rear suspension for the vehicle that you have. For this vehicle we probably would want good grip. We don't want it to wheel hop. We don't want it to, when you take off, when you give it, preload the suspension, you want the car to sit down versus lift up. So, you know, you got to have a certain amount of anti-squat and all that engineered into the suspension. I am not a wordsmith, so I can't really articulate the wordage for all of the things that you need to do for the suspension, but there is a ton of literature and there's a ton of people, even on YouTube, that have made videos on how to design the perfect suspension for whatever you got going on. One guy I follow a lot, Max Fish, he's kind of disappeared lately in the last couple of years, but he did have a bunch of literature out there for air suspension design and all that, and I'll throw a couple links out there to some of his stuff that you could go and read or whatever if you're going to do a project like this and you want to do your own rear suspension, even front suspension. I'll put you a couple links in the description to where you can find some of that literature to read and study up and all that, so where you can successfully engineer your own rear suspension. With that being said, I got to do a bunch of math, a bunch of measuring, and figure out a bunch of stuff, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to be able to make this work really well, and design this guy a good rear suspension with the, I wouldn't say cramped space. We do have quite a bit of space considering, but with the limited space we have, we are going to be able to get a decent suspension back here. So I'm gonna go do some measurements on this and tack these in and bend the hoop and do all that other stuff, and then really start measuring up where we need to put link tabs and all that. So. I made a couple of these little hoops to go over top of this. So I think we have the rear suspension finished. Well, not welded, but fit up is finished. This is what we ended up with. Kind of just bent some tube around and made, hold on one second, let me move this. Kind of just made some mounts here. We got the lower link bars here. It's all just kind of sit here. Upper link bars here. I just need to do a little rework on some of these tabs. I just kind of crudely ground them in there just to kind of do a little proof of concept thing. But yeah, these the link bars are a little bit shorter than what I like, but again, like this angle here is where the seat goes, so the seat is actually gonna like almost rest up on the back of this. So this is as far forward as we can go with the suspension. So it is what it is. It should ride good. I've got a lot of the geometry's pretty good. The only thing is, with link bars being really short with the travel, you're gonna get a lot more back and forth movement on the axle, but we're not traveling a huge amount. We're only going about 9 inches, so there isn't a ton of movement in the axle, but there is some. It's kind of just, you know, is what it is. But yeah, I dig the way it looks. I think it's going to function really well. I don't want to take too much away from it being a rat rod, you know. I don't want to make it too nice, because then it won't be a rat rod. It'll just be like a ugly show car. But yeah, I think I'm gonna fine tune a couple of them tabs and get everything super dialed in and zap her in there. So that's gonna do it for this video. And on the next video, what we're gonna do is take the motor and transmission and raise it up a little bit, because the transmission and oil pan is hanging below the frame, so we can't lay it out on that. So we got to raise it all up and then just kind of knock more stuff off the list. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you all in the next video.